Everybody have something? So let me ask you this. Have you ever been given the silent treatment? You ever been in a room and someone else is completely ignoring your existence? Have you felt that way? Yeah? Shake your head if you've ever had that experience. Total silent treatment, like you're not even there. I think that, let me ask you this. Do you believe that God is always present with you? That God is always there? Right? That God never leaves us, never forsakes us, meaning that whatever car ride you're on or motorcycle, whatever diner you're sitting at, living room, back patio, God is present with you everywhere, all the time. You believe that? Have you gone days or even weeks without acknowledging God's presence? Like the equivalent of saying that I believe that God is there, present with me, but I've been giving him the silent treatment for a week or 2 weeks or a month or however long it is. It's sort of crazy if we say, yes, I do believe that God is always with me, but I never acknowledge him. He's there. It's like a simple, acknowledgement. Hey, God, could you help me with this? Hey, God, thank you for this. Or even just sitting in the presence of God, saying, yeah, I know you're here, and I'm here. Whatever you want to say to me, whatever ideas you put in my head, any way that you want to comfort my heart, any direction you might want to give me, I'd love to receive that. I think many of us, unintentionally, I think because we don't see God physically. I think that for many of us, we forget that God is present right there with us. Have you forgotten that at times? Yeah? So if you think about the thou shalt have no other gods before me, love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. It's not the language of like a dictator, of a God who's like mad at us, that he's demanding your allegiance. You better pay attention to me, sucker. It's not like that. It's more like the invitation of someone who loves you. Like, I just enjoy your company. I enjoy connection with you. I miss you. I miss you. I like to connect with you. I like to talk to you. So think through your past week, because I think time, the way we spend our time, is a great indicator of what we value or who we value. And what are the voices that are speaking into your life? Is it friends, family, talk radio, podcasts, whatever, books, Netflix shows, whatever it is? What voices are we listening to? How many of us are listening to the voice of God? How many of us would say that there are other voices we're listening to more? Raise your hand. Would you say, if you looked at your time and how you're spending your day, your week, how many of you would say that there are other voices that have been more important to me in the past week, month, year than the voice of God? Now, think about what those voices are. And this is an opportunity when we take communion. This isn't just going through the motions. It's acknowledging and recognizing that, you know what, I've actually had a lot of gods before God. They're not like statues, they're not wooden or stone, but they're cell phones or a Netflix account or Amazon or a podcast or a politician or whatever it is. There are other gods that I put before God. So now we're going to take a moment and just alone with God in your own. So I miss you. I love you. I want I want to value time with you more than time or appearing from all these other voices. Take those things, those idols, and we lay all that at the feet of Jesus and say, you know what? It's not, none of that is as important. None of that is going to give life to my soul the way that Jesus will. So God, we just we acknowledge our idols, we acknowledge all the other things we put in place of you. We acknowledge that we have all kinds of gods that are before you. We get some. And they're not always making us happy. Sometimes they're making us anxious, irritable, frustrated, tired, stressed. So we just want to return to you. We just like the church in Revelation, who there's this one thing we had against them, that they left their first love. And I think for many of us, we love you, but not with the first love, more with like a third or fourth or fifth love. So God, we just want to come back to you and value you more than anything else. Jesus said, this is my body. Whatever you got, hold it up. This is my body broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me. Take what we have. And Jesus said, this is my blood poured out for you. Do this in remembrance of me. Thank you, Jesus, that you have no sort of anger toward us or condemnation toward us. You've actually declared us righteous, holy, and innocent. You endure a lot of silent treatment. There's been a lot of days, a lot of weeks where we haven't acknowledged your presence in any way. You continue to love us in an amazing and unwavering kind of way. We just want to acknowledge you and celebrate you. Help us to do that again today. Jackie is going to take the kids. So kids can go with Jackie. It's a little better now. Kids can go with Jackie.
What you got? You guys hear me good online now? Okay. So listen, lately we've been talking about the rhythms that we're all committed to in our various micro churches, and we talked about rest. Now listen, talking about this stuff without applying it means that your faith isn't really alive yet, hasn't really come to life. And the coolest thing about this is rhythm number one is actually telling you to do less. It's all about rest. How many of you have applied that one? You've begun to take some naps, take a day off, rest, take it easy, not be so burnout and busy. You guys doing that? Taking some rest? If not, this is your permission to not be so burnout and busy and stressed out with life God actually commands you to like take a nap. For Jesus' sake, take a nap. It's good to take a break, rest. You're free to rest. The second one was eat. We said to follow Jesus, if the Son of Man came eating and drinking, a friend of tax collectors and sinners, what that means is that we eat the way that Jesus ate. So how many of you have picked up a rhythm of eating like Jesus? Gathering people around your table or joining them at a coffee shop or connecting with other people who share or don't share your faith, being good news around the table. If you haven't, like, do it. It's fun. Like we're made for community. It's a good thing. So if you aren't or haven't been connecting with people, pick that one up. But this next one is about active love. It's about active love. And I'm going to start with this story. A few years ago, it's a true story. Now, you know what? I am going to change the names to protect the guilty and the innocent. I'm going to change the names. So I coached soccer a few years ago. Now, mind you, I knew nothing about soccer, but they were desperate enough that they would take somebody as a coach who actually didn't know anything about the game. I didn't know the game of soccer. So I YouTubed everything about soccer so that I could learn the sport better so that I could coach it, right? Didn't really know it, but I'm going out there like, kids, this is what you do. Parents are so how long have you been around the game of soccer? I'm like, a few months. I don't know it at all. They're like, oh, well, you're doing great. I'm like, oh, thanks. That's good. I YouTubed it all. No idea. But I had the kids line up and I was teaching them how to kick the ball in. I said, this is how you do it, kids. They all lined up next to me and were watching me. I put the ball in front of me, ran up and kicked it. And it must have hit my foot just right. But this ball sailed, like just sailed. And I mean, it sailed way up in the air, went over the fence, hit the back bank, bounced off the bank into the road. Cars are swerving around. Parents were like horrified, right? Anyway, I'm like, never mind, don't do that. Just kick it in. You want to make sure you get it to a teammate. I had no idea what I was doing. But I coached with a friend, and she actually knew a lot about soccer. She came from a country, super, super big soccer country. The two of us were coaching together. And at the end of the season, after connecting with some of the families, there was a guy that came to the end of the season picnic. We're hanging out in this lady's backyard, the other coach and her husband hanging out in their backyard with the whole team, all the parents. And this guy said, how do you guys know each other, from church or something? He saw on Facebook that we were all connected around our faith. Like, yeah, he's like, I don't believe any of that Jesus crap. Like, okay, that's cool, whatever. And we continued to connect and be friends and develop this ongoing friendship. The two of us would get together occasionally, grab lunch or a cup of coffee or a beer together. And we established this friendship. Well, the guy went through super hard times. I'll call him Alan. This guy, Alan, went through some super hard times. His wife left him. And when his wife left him, she left him for one of his family members. And it was super painful, very difficult. He was going through a rough time. Still, Alan was this really like want to help other people kind of guy. He came out of the military. So it was right around Hurricane Katrina. Remember all the devastation from Katrina? He actually, former military guy, he actually rented this truck, went with a bunch of his buddies that he was in the military with, and they took a week off of work. They drove all the way down to where all the disaster stuff was going on, and people were stuck from the hurricane, and he and his friends were rescuing people. Took a week off of work. They're rescuing people that were stuck in all the hurricane mess. It's amazing. Came back, he's telling me the stories the same time he's hurting from his wife who had left him. The two of us are talking. I looked at him and I said to him, hey man, I think what you did, like going down there and taking a whole week off of work and helping all these people down in hurricane disaster, I think that is so selfless. And what you did reminds me of Jesus, and Jesus is my hero. That's the type of stuff Jesus would do, is go out of his way to help those who are hurting and in need, to put himself at risk and danger for the people that he loved. Like, man, you just reminded me of Jesus by doing that. And he's like, yeah, whatever, right? Kind of blew me off. Anyway, I would throw those little nuggets out at him every once in a while when we grab a bite together. And as he's hurting, the one day he said, man, let's do a cup of coffee. So we went out for coffee and he's sharing a little bit more about the stuff that's going on. He said, yeah, I met this girl at work and you know, she's super hot. So we've been talking a little bit. A couple of weeks later, I talked to him again and he said, yeah, that girl at work invited me to church and I went. He's like, only because she's hot. It's like, I didn't really want to get into the Jesus stuff or the church stuff, but she's cute. It's like, I got all these questions now because they were talking about Jesus and faith, but some of it seemed like really just a lot of like judgment and law and religion and rules and stuff like that. But I just want to talk about stuff sometimes. So we met together. We talked a little bit about grace. One Sunday morning, he texts me and he says, where's your church gathering this morning? Many of you remember we were at the conference center every week at that point in time. So I said, we're at the Central Penn College conference. And he said, okay, cool, I'm going to come. And so he showed up to the conference center that morning. This is the same guy that said, I don't believe any of that Jesus crap, right? Shows up to the conference center that morning, and he's sitting back in the back as an atheist, sitting back in the back. And it happened to be a week that some of you guys know Reese and Wendy. You remember Reese and Wendy? Some of you remember them. Reese would sometimes get a little charismatic with his worship, right? And he'd say things and do things that people weren't used to. So one day he's playing, and you know how he'd go like this, and his little patch of hair would go flapping in the wind like this. And he was getting really emotional, and you know he's crying out to God, but he's doing it in this way that, like, I mean, you know, Reese, he got so into it that it almost sounded sexual. He's like, oh Lord, yes Lord, right? Yes, right? And I'm sitting there like, this is not the Sunday for this, because I got this friend who's never been in this environment before. He's totally going to be scared away. And then Reese keeps going, and he quotes. It's like Song of Solomon, where he says, the lover waits outside of the door and says, let me in. And he goes, let me in, right? He gets all like emotional and his head's flopping back. And I'm like, man, this is not good. So at the end of the day, after all of that, I see this email pop up in my inbox, and I'm thinking he's about to send me. And it was from this guy Alan. I'm like, he's sending me an email about how weird the music and the worship and the emotion and all that. I know it. I'm like, this is not good. I don't even want to open this thing right now. I'm like watching a baseball game. I popped this email up, and he said this: in your teaching today, you said that love invites us to do things that are risky and daring and to step outside of our comfort zone because we care about other people. And he said, so I left your gathering this morning, and after I left your gathering this morning, I went to meet up with the hot girl at the El Rodeo. And when I got to the El Rodeo, after we ate, we're coming out of the El Rodeo, and there's this guy standing there, and he was asking for money. And he said, I just thought, hey, Mike told us this morning that we should do risky and daring things because we love people. So I just got into a conversation with this guy and asked him his story. And he talked about some of his choices and how he was estranged from his family, and his family's out in Ohio, and he's here in Pennsylvania, and he's trying to collect enough money to get back to his family, and he wants to reunite with these people. And he said, in that moment, I just felt this adrenaline rush, and I'm like, what if I just do something crazy and risky and just like love this guy? And so in that moment, he said, what's your family's address? And they gave him the address of this. The guy gave him the address of this place in Ohio. And so he GPSed it on his phone. And he said, 8 hours. It's like, I'll take you. And so that afternoon, he gets this guy in his car, drives him 8 hours to Ohio. They get to Ohio. He puts him up in a hotel room and stays in the same hotel that night. The next day, he gives him a gift card to a local grocery store to cover a bunch of his food, takes him to meet and reunite with his son. And he said, thank you. Thank you for challenging us to do things that are risky and to love people and to step outside of my comfort zone. It's a true story, right? That happened with our community. Really amazing. Then he started coming more frequently to the stuff that we were doing. But this is what it means, not just to have faith that's dead or to talk about love, but to say, in the moment, right now, if Jesus were here, if Jesus met this guy outside of an El Rodeo, what would he do? And am I nuts enough? Am I like crazy enough to actually take action in a way that's like, gets your heart beating? It's like invigorating, life-giving, transforming. I'm called to something more than just talking about this stuff, but actually do something. What if I actually did something? That guy did something. All of that's my backdrop to the story today, which is in Luke 10. Luke 10:25. Just then, a religion scholar stood up with a question to test Jesus. Teacher, what do I need to do to get eternal life? He answered, what's written in God's law? How do you interpret it? He said that you love the Lord your God with all your passion and prayer and muscle and intelligence, and that you love your neighbor as well as you do yourself. Good answer, said Jesus. Do it and you'll live, right? Here's the answer. Jesus said, love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Love your neighbor. He's like, okay, well, how would you define neighbor? Looking for a loophole, right? How do I get out of this? Love God, love your neighbor. Well, who's my neighbor, technically? Jesus answered by telling a story. There was once a man traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho. On the way, he was attacked by robbers. They took his clothes, beat him up, and went off, leaving him half dead. Luckily, a priest was on his way down the same. Thank God the priest showed up. We know the guy's going to be okay now, right? Because the priest is there. We're in good hands. But when he saw the guy that was beaten up, he actually like angled himself across to the other side of the street so that he wouldn't have to pay attention to the guy that was beat up on the side of the road. Then a Levite religious man showed up. He also avoided the injured man, went to the other side of the road. A Samaritan traveling the road came on him. When he saw the man's condition, his heart went out to him. Right? This is the difference. This is the seeing the guy at the El Rodeo and not going, I think I'm going to take the other exit. Let's pretend like I don't see him. I'm going to like fake a phone call or something, right? I don't want to have to deal with this. But to actually see the person and give a crap about their situation and go, I'm going to listen. I'm going to take an interest. I'm going to hear what's going on in this person's life and story. And it was a Samaritan, which for Jewish people, they avoided Samaritans in Samaria. They're like, it's sort of frustrating if you hear this story as a religious person, because Jesus is praising the person that the Jews didn't like. A Samaritan came on him. When he saw the man's condition, his heart went out. He gave him first aid, disinfecting and bandaging his wounds. Then he lifted him onto his donkey or put him in his SUV, whatever, make it connect, modern day, stuck him in his SUV, took him to the Holiday Inn Express, and made him comfortable. In the morning, he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, take good care of him, right? Give him like a gift card to Giant. The groceries are on me for the week. I got you covered. If it costs any more, put it on my bill. I'll pay you on my way back. What do you think? Which of the 3 became a neighbor to the man attacked by robbers? The one who treated him kindly, the religion scholar responded. Jesus said, go and do the same. All right, this is like equivalent, I think, for many religious people of saying, if you think the good Samaritan, it'd be like saying the good Muslim, they, them, right? Whenever you think about the pronouns, and this is a person that's maybe transgender or gender fluid or whatever, and Christians tend to push away people that might be of other faiths, Muslims, people that are struggling with gender identity, whatever else. Here Jesus says, I'm going to put up a person that's actually going to frustrate you, that's the hero of the story, a Samaritan, that you would have seen as like a dirty outsider, right? And they're actually going to be the one that shows compassion, empathy. It should have been the priest, should have been the Levite. None of them did anything, right? They talk about love. They talk about faith. They talk about caring for people. They didn't. So I'm actually going to put someone up that you don't even care about or like. They're going to be the hero of the story. And it's sort of going to be mud in your eyes to go, you should be paying attention because you're not actually living this. Not actually doing what I called you to do. Something more beautiful I'm calling you to. So who do you identify with in the story? Who do you identify with in the story? Say it. Online, you guys, who do you identify with in the story? Do you identify with the man that was beaten up on the side of the road that nobody pays attention to? Do you identify with the people that pass by and try to ignore the person that's in pain? Do you identify with the Samaritan that actually does something to help people? Do you identify with the innkeeper who watches the whole thing and observes what's going on here? Who do you identify with in the story? Somebody answer. Who do you identify with? Which one? Which one of the characters do you identify with when you hear the story? A little bit of all of them at times. Okay. Tony, you can relay what you're seeing. People are typing. Anyone else? Who do you identify with in the story? Who do you identify with? Nobody? This story does not connect with your life at all? Okay, at different times, different people. At different times, you've been hurting and nobody cared. At different times, somebody else was hurting and you didn't have time. Right? Or safety or fear. There you go. I can't help them. Yeah, exactly. What am I going to do? Yeah, for sure. Yep. That's good.
Spring meetings off of the sheets, and literally come back out to the sheet, get ready to talk to the car, and guy comes up to me, asks for money. And I'm normally, I usually give people just straight money because they think to do with money that.
Yep. So guy asks for money.
Yeah, but he ends up like, he doesn't give me a time to talk, like I think he just talk like FaceTime to us. No, he just kind of quick like run over, went down to his quick story, what was going on, what time. So I went, I got her gift card, but like even though I got it when he was asking for like my heart was like as we're doing it at that point.
Yep. Yeah. Get on with your day. Yeah. So that's the irony in the story that I told you. That's a true story. Is here's the guy that came to the NRC gathering at the conference center that was actually an atheist, which was the one that drove 8 hours with the guy outside of the El Rodeo. And it's the same story Jesus is telling, essentially. It's like all these church people didn't really do anything, but then you've got the atheist, the good atheist, who drove this guy 8 hours, put him up in a hotel room, gave him a grocery store gift card, reunited him with his son that he hasn't seen, that he's been estranged from. It's beautiful, right? But it could have been us, but maybe we were the priest of the Levite that passed by on the other side. And so I think for me, the one that I identify with the most is the priest and the Levite that passed by on the other side. And it's not because I don't care, it's because I don't have time. It's because my life is so busy and stretched, and I don't have enough margin that I can't stop because I got to get here. We got to get there. Right? We don't have time for this right now. Right? And so I think to the one who knows to do good but doesn't do it, it's sin. Or let's put it this way. When Paul says the things that I want to do, I don't do. But the things that I don't want to do, I do. Now, we think of sin as like doing things you're not supposed to do, right? You go like, it's a sin to do something bad, to do something that you're not supposed to do. But what I don't oftentimes think about is there's a lot of good that I might feel inspired to do something about, but I don't take action. It's like a lack of taking action when I have the ability, the capacity, the resources to actually help people and do something good. But for whatever reason, I have an excuse. Or maybe next time, or next week, or next month, or when situations are better, or when we're not super busy, then I could do something. Then I could help this person. It's like all the conditions have to be perfect in order for us to actually do something loving and kind. But love and kindness and compassion and empathy are rarely convenient, right? Love, kindness, compassion, empathy are rarely convenient. You usually get interrupted, I don't know, 10:30 at night when you're about to go to bed, or when you're on your way to something important, or you're driving down the road and see someone broke down, but you're already 15 minutes late for something. And love, I think part of loving in this way means allowing yourself to be inconvenienced, allowing yourself to embrace audibles, allowing yourself to have a little bit of margin, maybe freeing yourself to care about the stuff that before you didn't really have time for. I think that's the biggest challenge for me in this. So if you think about blessing people, loving people, blessing people, what this guy Alan did, you think about the Good Samaritan. Who did Jesus bless? Who did Jesus bless? Talk about it at your tables. Talk about it together. Who did Jesus bless? Who are the people Jesus blessed? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You got to take one more minute. Okay, you look done. Who did Jesus bless? What's that? The outcast. Yep, for sure. It's good. He blessed people that religious people wouldn't bless. Outcasts, outsiders, marginalized, people that were mistreated, unrecognized, people that didn't get invited to the party, people that were sick. Yep. He said what? Yeah, the ones who couldn't repay him. Yep, exactly. That's good. The ones that couldn't repay you. You're helping people not just so that you can be recognized or loved back. You're not loving people just because they love you. You're actually helping people that have nothing to give you in return. You might see as like, this person's just using me, that sort of thing. Just loving people that you feel have nothing to give you. Okay. What else? How about your enemy? Bless your enemy. Pray for those that persecute you. That's a tough one, right? Give gifts to people, compliments to people that have mistreated you. That's a wild, radically wild thing to do. I think maybe we have a different reputation as Christians if we blessed our enemies. Be like, these people are nuts. They actually like send Amazon boxes to their enemies' houses. They're just insane. They're crazy. Something nutty about these people because of the way they love. It's good. So let me ask you this question. Do you consult with Jesus before you plan your week or your day and say, Jesus, how might you want to use this day or this week? Maybe if you already have activities, if it's like work or a hobby or something your kids are into or whatever you got going on. What if you were to say, God, how do you want to use this time? How could I be a presence of good news to people in this place, in this workplace, with this group of friends, with my kids? Or do you keep it totally separate? It's almost like that's your life, and then you got stuff like this occasionally, Sunday and teachings and all that, but it's like separated. The two are separate. Or do you say, you know what? Jesus, I'm inviting you to the bar with me. I'm inviting you to the coffee shop with me. I'm inviting you to the workplace with me. What's it look like to care about these people, to meet a need, to bless someone, to do something good in this place or space? You even like take the time to ask, what do you want to do today or this week? How many of you do that? Okay, would that be a good step of action for us to take, you think? So here's the real trick in all this. If we say that we want blessing other people to be like a habit or a rhythm, something that becomes a part of our life, not just a one-time act. Do you want to live like this as a way of life? Do you want to be someone that blesses other people, helps other people, meets needs? How many of you want to live that way of life? Yeah? Okay. So how do you make it a habit without it feeling like another thing on your to-do list? Another burden, another like checklist item, without it feeling like heavy and exhausting and whatever? How do you make that a part of your life and rhythm? Talk about that together at your table. What does that look like for you to start to live that pattern without it becoming like exhausting or overwhelming, frustrating? Go for it. Mute me real quick. All right, guys. So how do you do that? How do you make this a way of life without it feeling like I gotta check that off my list? Okay, one day a week. So I'll share this with you guys. Our family for several years straight had this habit with our kids, especially when they were younger, when we would say, every Monday, we're going to do something called Blessing Monday. And so we made it like a rhythm together as a family that we went, why don't we bless someone every Monday? It could be like writing an encouraging note. The kids will write cards. We could bake cookies and leave them at somebody's house. We could do something to help someone or bless someone, but we'll do it as a family. How cool is that? Rather than just like having a typical night where you just eat and go through the motions, you go every week together, we'll bless someone. That is one way, and that's what Clint suggested. You just have a day a week that you dedicate to. This is a day where we just make it a habit that together as a family, we're going to bless someone. We're going to help someone. That's one way. What else? Okay, so prayer makes you aware of the opportunities. You know, one of the things you could do is maybe journal every day, like, God, what are you up to? Like, what's happening in my life and my work and my neighborhood? And it just keeps you aware of the needs that are going on. You could even like take walks in your neighborhood, and as you're walking, just observe who's hurting, what's broken, who needs help, what are the opportunities right around me. Even make notes about your own workplace, your friend circles, and then meet them. You can pick a day a week. You can just, as you go, meet that need as you go. Journaling's good. A day a week's good. It's great. Good examples. Anything else? So Cam says it's got to be important to us. So it's like a value issue. If we don't care about helping other people, we're probably not going to take action. So maybe step one is saying, God, for a long time, I haven't cared about the people around me. Have you felt that way? Like, are there times, I'll admit this for me, there are times where I'm just thinking about me and my family and the stuff we got to do. And I don't really acknowledge the people around me. So it isn't that I actively hate them. It's that I'm actively so wrapped up in my own life that I haven't cared about the people around me. So God, give me eyes to see the people around me that might be hurting or have needs or could use support. God, I haven't actually been caring about my neighbors, coworkers, friends, family. You been there? Yeah, sure. It's good. Okay, to make it real tangible, what are some forms of loving other people? How do we actually do it? You say love people feels so like vague, doesn't it? Love your neighbor. Okay, what does that mean? Like hug them? Like how do I love my neighbor? What does it look like to love your neighbor, your coworker, your friends, your enemies? What does that look like tangibly? How do you love people? So give me some examples of forms of love. How could you love someone? How could you show love to someone? Cook them something. Is that what you said? Yeah. I would feel super loved. If food comes, I feel loved, for sure. Yep. What else? You could cook something for someone. Absolutely. An encouraging note that you feel like might even be insignificant. So when our micro church, when the kids wrote letters to the police officers, and we delivered them to the police officers here in East Penn, a whole bunch of those letters. You think that it's like, you're not even really doing anything. What's that going to do? What's it going to accomplish? Are you actually like doing anything? But sometimes just feeling valued or loved or appreciated creates a bridge to relationship. That bridge to relationship can impact someone's life. And sometimes it's the seemingly insignificant things like an encouraging text, a note, thank you for what you do, appreciate you. I know that there's a lot of negativity and adversity, and I just want you to know that we care. Like something like that, very simple, can go a long way to building a bridge for other people. Yeah, that's good. Encouraging note, making them food. What else? Yeah. Put others before yourself. Let them go first. Don't insist on your own way. Yeah, I mean, real tangible act of love could be, we'll watch your show instead of mine. Right? It's like real, like, it's not always about me. So I'm going to put you before myself. And smiling is good. And there's just like a lot of anger and frustration that people feel, and tenseness and hurriedness. Even a smile can cause someone to feel loved. It's good. What else? Anything else? Help them with the task. Fix something. Tangibly. I saw someone in one of our micro churches yesterday go and put in a AC unit in somebody else's house, like just to bless them and help them out, encourage them. And so, yeah, tangibly, you can look around and go, there are physical needs life needs. So you could fix something physically. You could encourage someone with words or compliments. You're really good at this. I love this about you, right? I really noticed this, and I think that's awesome, right? Say something that's complimentary or encouraging. Give a gift. How about showing up? Just presence. Do people need relationship and community and somebody to just listen? To just listen. Would that be a great act of love? Is to just listen to someone? What do you think? Good step? So I'm going to ask you this as like a closing question. And I want you, and I know some of you like are going to want to not listen because you're rebels. But if you could write it down, wherever you're at, on your phone, whatever, write it down. One act of love that you will participate in this week. Something you want to do. Some step you want to take. Because if we talk about it but don't do anything, it sort of defeats the purpose, doesn't it? Isn't the whole point of this that we actually like take action and not just talk about it? So write down, wherever you're at, one thing that you want to actually do this week. One step you want to take. Go for it. Jot it down. And then I'm going to ask for examples, like something you came up with. Put it down, write it down. After I get those, I have a closing story, and then we'll be done for the day. One act of love you want to participate in this week. I can like physically see nobody writing it down. Go for it. All right, mail out encouraging cards. Awesome. Maybe you just do it right now so you don't forget about it. Shoot someone a text with a compliment. Something like that. All right, so examples. What is one act of love that you want to participate in this week? Go. Share it. What you got? Anybody? Just keep it in theory land. What you got? Feed someone. Cool. I've had people like randomly show up at my house with a pizza. That's a great feeling. You got like a random pizza drop off. Sweet. We already had dinner prepared, but we're like, that's lunch tomorrow. Take a pizza. Anyone else? What is it? Okay, clean up the neighborhood. That's good. My kids love to do that. When we're walking, they're like grabbing trash in our neighborhood. Elise told me that she wants to be a trash collector for her job one day. She said, Daddy, I want to be a trash collector and I want to work at the zoo because I love animals and I want to make the world beautiful. So she's picking trash up around the neighborhood. It's pretty sweet. And here I am like, don't touch that. It's like, who knows what's on that? What are you doing? And they're picking it up. They're finding trash cans and putting it in. It's beautiful. Good. Clean up the neighborhood. I'm gonna encourage you with this. Be creative with it. Don't be lazy with it. There's lots of good ideas. And sometimes we just don't pause enough to think about what could I do that would be a blessing to other people. I'm gonna end with a story that is a true story that Tony and I were a part of. Years ago, we used to do wing nights at Arugas. And one day, somebody was down at the Capitol and saw this very outspoken atheist guy who was yelling and ranting and raving and saying all kinds of stuff on the steps of the Capitol building. Well, somebody that was part of our network said to the atheist guy, hey, not every Christian is like the people that you're referencing. We actually know people that are loving, that are good, that are gracious, that would love to hang out with you. They're different. They're different than the typical religious stuff that you've seen and heard. You need to connect with them. He said, actually, a group of them are hanging out tonight at Arugas for a wing night. And so this atheist guy, he thought nothing of it, left. The guy who invited the atheist guy couldn't make it to the wing night. And so Tony and I and a whole group of us, there were probably like 15 of us, sitting around a big table at Arugas, hanging out. And there's this guy sitting across from us that we had never seen before. I'm like, who is this guy that randomly showed up? He had this shirt with a symbol that looked like NASA, but it said American Atheist Association. So he had like his swag on, that he was like one of the representatives from the American Atheist Association. He's sitting at the table there with us, and we're talking and sharing stories, and we're like, how did you end up here? He's like, well, so-and-so saw me standing out at the steps of the Capitol building and told me that I should come here for chicken wings and to hang out with you guys and that you're different. He said, what is this, like a Bible study or something? We said, we're just eating wings and having some drinks and talking about life and family. And sometimes we also talk about faith too, but we don't really have an agenda. And so the guy like immediately wanted to start debating creation, evolution, stuff like that with us. And we like didn't take the bait at all. I looked at him and I'm like, dude, what's your story? Like, what's your story? And the guy starts sharing his story. And in his background, he had a mom that was trying to make ends meet and was doing some crazy stuff to try to pay the bills. This really kind of rough childhood. And then he had like no dad in the picture. And then some guy that was a leader in a church tried to take him under his wing. He was like there for him, listening to him, loving him, all that kind of stuff. Took him around with him when he would speak at these events. And this Christian guy, he walked in on this Christian leader raping somebody. And he said he had to testify against the guy in court because of his sexual abuse. And he concluded that all Christians are just fake and phony and agenda and all that kind of stuff. I was really upset about it. Well, Tony and I and a whole group of us looked at the guy and we're like, dude, I am so sad that you went through all of that. And we just related to him, like loved the guy, listened to him. At the end of the night, he said, you guys are the nicest group of Christians that I've ever met. And he said, can I get my picture with you? We were like, yeah, sure, I guess, whatever. So he got his picture with us. And so we started like texting and had this friendship going on. Anyway, I randomly thought of the guy. It was like a Friday night. I shot him a text and said, hey man, how you doing? And he's like, do you know what's going on with me right now? And I said, no, what's going on? And he's like, I've been having issues. Like I've been dropping stuff. I dropped my coffee cup. Like I'm losing feeling in my fingers. I don't know what's going on with me. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll pray for you. He's like, whatever, dude, you know, I'm not into that stuff. And so the next week, 2 weeks later, we're texting and talking a little bit more. And he said, how did you know to text me again? And I said, I don't know. I was just thinking about you randomly. So I thought I'd shoot you a text and reach out. What's going on? And he said, it got even worse. I'm holding my kid. I lost feeling in my hands. I dropped my kid. He's like, now I'm at the hospital. They're running tests. I'm like, man, I'm so sorry. I'll pray for you. And he said, go ahead, pray to your mythical fairy god or whatever. And so then a couple days later, it's right around the 4th of July. We had this barbecue going on, and Tony and I are hanging out. There's a whole bunch of barbecue, like a whole bunch of meat and stuff at the barbecue. So we packaged it up and said, why don't we take this stuff over to our friend who's a part of the American Atheist Association? Why don't we take this barbecue to his hospital room? And so we took the barbecue to this guy's hospital room. We sat next to him on his hospital bed, and we looked out the window as the fireworks are going off in Harrisburg, 4th of July fireworks, eating barbecue with this guy from the Atheist Association. And he looks at us and he goes, no atheists have come to visit me. It's like a part of the Atheist Association, like a leader voice in the Atheist Association. No atheists have come to visit me. He said, you guys are the only people that have come to visit me. He said, I can't deny the love that you're showing me. Like, I still don't believe in any of that stuff, but I can't deny that you guys love me and no one else is here. So what we're called to do, all of us, is to just take action. Maybe that's saying, hey, some of us are doing wings, come join us. Maybe it's at a barbecue going, I know there's someone alone in that hospital bed. Why don't we take some of this food and go sit with this person? It's just that one act, 10% outside of your comfort zone, that moves you into a space of love, care, and concern. So that's what we get to do. It's beautiful. God, we just thank you for a good morning, good discussion around blessing people, an act of love. Help us to take action, not just to hear and talk about this stuff, but to do something with it. We thank you that you love us and that your love was acted. You did something about it. You stepped into the mess. You took on our pain and our suffering and forgave us while we were sinners and imperfect. We love you. Amen. I think you need this.
here, I find my rest. And without you, I fall apart. You're the one who guides my heart. But I need you, oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. For sin runs deep. Your grace is more, but grace is found in where you are, and where you are. Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me, and where you are. Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Oh, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. So teach myself to rise to you when temptation comes my way, and when I cannot stand, I fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay, and when I cannot stand, I fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. Oh, I need you. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Hope you all have a fantastic week.